Welcome to All About Money. I am Chloe Fong. As the world races to resume normal life and reboot the economy, Hong Kong remains largely sealed off because of its stringent inbound quarantine rules. Expats who have lost patience are leaving the city. Once dubbed the world's getaway to China, but is now shut for over 2 years. Business groups are all calling on authorities to ease the COVID curbs, or else Hong Kong may permanently lose its international profile. Among them is the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, the leading chamber in the city with about 4,000 corporate members. With us today is Mr. George Leung, the group's chief executive. Welcome to the program, Mr. Leung.
Nice to be here.
So let's first start to talk about some economic concerns over the past 2 years. In one of your articles, you said that, quote, the Hong Kong business community is starting to have serious concerns about the long-term impact of the ongoing restrictions. For it is not just the airline sector that is affected, but every Hong Kong business is suffering from the inability to travel. So first, tell us how the travel restrictions have damaged local business operations over the past 2 years. It would be great if you could help us to quantify and understand the economic damages over the past 2 years.
Well, indeed, Hong Kong is an international financial and business hub. Basically, our function is to bridge, all other country, into Hong Kong to gather to do business. So when we are not possible to get passenger coming to Hong Kong or out of Hong Kong, Hong Kong cannot be performing possibly, the normal function. So it's not just affecting the aviation business, but also all those business that require to have a passenger to come to Hong Kong. For example, say, a lot of exhibition, you need the people to come to Hong Kong in a place in order to have a trade fair. And for example, say a lot of business meeting that needed to have be held in Hong Kong, those are not possible. So in the past, that this is a pretty important function of Hong Kong that cannot be performed as in the past. So it make quite a damaging effect to Hong Kong, the economic growth as well as the future development. Well, in the past, when the whole world is not possible to travel, the impact on Hong Kong is not so obvious because people cannot hold this sort of a business function elsewhere. But right now, the whole world almost opening up, except that Hong Kong is still under very stringent social restriction. And you can see Hong Kong has a lot of business slipping to other countries. And in the future, if we continue to be in such a position, we will see a lot of business that been moving out of Hong Kong might not be possible to come back. At the moment, we already saw quite a lot of people throwing out Hong Kong because they don't want to take the 7 days quarantine. And those sort of business function are now being held in our Hong Kong competitor cities. So if in the future, another 6 to 12 months continue to be in this situation, I'm worried about those business, leaving Hong Kong will not be possibly come back. In that case, damage will be some sort of a permanent to Hong Kong, the future development. The Hong Kong economic growth has been slow for quite some times. Right now, we are hooking up, with other rest of the world by, the webinar, meeting online, doing business over the computer. But this cannot be, totally replaced by face-to-face interaction between people. And people need to come to Hong Kong here in order to hold a business meeting, to meet the client, to do the fair trade. So those are the things that need to be physical. So in the coming 6 months, I think that is pretty important to Hong Kong, whether we can open it up further or not.
Right, George. I actually also want to know about your views on, for example, some companies, they're relocating their headquarters or staffs into other maybe places where it's more opened up. But do you think that it will be a kind of a permanent thing, or is just a short-term phenomenon because, after all, their infrastructure is here in Hong Kong?
Well, I think quite a number of international firms are moving their regional quarter out of Hong Kong because their staff, cannot be fly in and out of Hong Kong freely. If the situation continue, I think that those people moving out may not be possibly considered coming back because of the cost consideration. But anyhow, Hong Kong still have its competitive advantage. We are praised that very convenient, for all sorts of business meeting, exhibition, and also backed up by the very largest mainland market. So if Hong Kong can resume our border opening sooner, I think that there is still possible to attract those business moving out of Hong Kong will be coming back to Hong Kong. Hopefully, that would not be take too long for Hong Kong to stay at this situation.
Right, so it's still very much depending on the openness level of the city. And now, in terms of the restrictions, we have actually seen some easing measures that have been taken place since May. Last Sunday, we see that there are some new policies coming out suggesting that more travels could be possible in the city. Tell us, what do you think about the current easing measures in terms of its effectiveness in releasing the travel pressure?
I think all this relaxation are a very positive step. Of course, this situation, despite the relaxation, is not still very ideal because that still limit the people, to fly in and out of Hong Kong. But the opening up process has to be somewhat gradual in terms of policy relaxation from the government perspective. So all this signal giving to the Hong Kong community and also the outside that Hong Kong is now on the way to open up our border. And hopefully we can have quarantine-free travel in the next few months. As I said, Hong Kong government take a gradual approach to relaxation. This is a very positive direction. And hopefully after a short period, we found that there is not too many infected cases after this sort of relaxation. Then Hong Kong can move forward the fully abundance of the suspension mechanism. In that case, our airline can easily plan their flight, traveling to Hong Kong and to other countries. This is a very important step for the aviation business.
Right. And actually, your chamber also suggests that the city should have a more detailed roadmap, as you just previously mentioned a little bit as well. So I'm thinking, do you have a suggested timeline for the city to consider with? Is there a feasible timeline that you're thinking in your mind?
Well, of course, the Hong Kong business community would like to see all the ban lift today, that we can go back to do our business immediately. But of course, the business need some sort of roadmap so that they can plan their business activities, despite whether it's happening, in the short term or you got to tell them when that can be opening up, so that they can, for example, say if those firms are planning to move their headquarters or regional headquarters away from Hong Kong, and they see some light at the tunnel that Hong Kong will soon lift all the ban, then they might, withhold the plan and until, sometimes later. I think those are all the information is good for the business planning, and they need it to plan their activities. We hope that we can resume the fully opening up our border to the rest of the world, hopefully in the second half of this year. But hardly we can tell. I mean, this is the government job to tell the business community what's the roadmap and when we can resume full quarantine-free travel.
Right. You actually mentioned something like to opening up with the world, maybe in the second half of the year. Then what about the opening up with the mainland? What is your thought on this? Because the city has been, trying very hard to open with the mainland first, as we have seen last year with a lot of negotiations as well. But then we didn't achieve that goal.
Opening up the border to the mainland and the rest of the world are equally important to Hong Kong. As I said, Hong Kong is a international business hub to facilitate the East and the West. So both sides are equally important. But right now, it depends on the condition to which side to open first. I think that if we are going back to last Christmas, when Hong Kong has almost zero case and China still hasn't have a outbreak. At that time, Hong Kong closed to open up the border with the mainland. So because the conditions were all there, so we should, by that time, we should have, almost to get, resume opening up border with the mainland. But right now the situation has changed. Hong Kong has certain numbers of infected cases every day, but Hong Kong also has a very high vaccination rate already. So we do have the condition to fully opening up to the rest of the world. While China is still working hard to clean up their own case in the country. So right now we see that Hong Kong has more condition to open up to the rest of the world first than the mainland. So we should consider in that case that possibly Hong Kong may be open up to the rest of the world first, and then we work back later, come back later to see what condition we can do to resume our border opening up with the mainland.
All right, thank you very much for your insights, George. Let's take a short break before we have more discussions on Hong Kong's economic recovery. Don't go away.